Hello and welcome to Golden Droplets, a series of webinars intended to narrow the gap existing between the academy and the industry. In today's episode, number 39, we're going to be talking about GeoMapsApps, an incredibly useful application that you can use for free on the internet, or you can download it into your desktop, and will allow you to create great maps to get some petrological information if it exists, to export all this to Google Earth Pro or to Excel in the form of ASCII files, ANZ files, etc. In general, GeoMapsApps will become a perfect tool for your everyday work. So, once again, Golden Droplets, episode 39. Enjoy. The first step, of course, is to download the application that you can find at geomapapp.org. And you come down here, you see the download links for each operation system. And also please notice that there are video tutorials available. So let us open the software. This is the program, and I'm going to explain you the steps that I do to prepare like a base map. Okay, so first we go to File, Preferences. I prefer to work with Times New Romans. And 12 is a good font size. The coordinates, I leave it at -180 to +180. I don't change any of the rest, so I just click OK. Next, I go to DataLayers, Bathymetry and Land Topography, Global Models, and I will get this NOAA Global 1 kilometer topography. So down here is the loaded grid, and here is the layer manager that shows all the steps that we are doing and what we can click, select, move, etc. We will see all that during this presentation. For the moment, I'm not going to touch this screen. I know it's loaded. I will go to Overlay and select the country boundaries. And you can change the color and thickness of the lines in every case. Minimize this. Let us concentrate on an area now. So I click on the plus, and I will select this area here from the African Horn. Let's take a more detailed section. It takes some time because it's a big data file. So we need, of course, scale. So I go to Overlay and select Distance Scale. We have the scale now. We can deselect this little globe here with the location. Again, so Overlay, Global. You can deselect it, more clean space. Then we could add the lakes and rivers. So lakes and rivers. Let's go with the major rivers. So we got the major rivers here. And again, as always, you could change the color of these rivers, the thickness of the line, etc. Now we need some kind of grid. So we go to Overlay, and latitude and longitude. We will get the 1 degree reticule, and we have now our grid here. And now one of the most important steps, click on this icon, the second from the right. It will allow us to determine the frequency of the lines for the relief. So we get here, it's loading. And if you click here on this icon, you can define that we want the lines interval, let's say every 200 meters. We click accept. It's loading, and we click on continuous, and we get our topographic map. One thing that is very important to remember is that at any point during the processing of the maps, you can click on this little icon here, and you can save your database as an ASCII file, GeoTIFF, KMC, as an image, as a PNG image. I mean, it's amazing the databases that you can create. Okay, so now that we have our database, we can go here to DataLayers. We can add several layers of information. For example, let's say if I want to add the geology, the geological map for Africa, let's say the USGS, and we get the geological map for this area. You can make it more transparent, so you will see the grids below the topography, etc. And as I mentioned, there are other things like chemistry, etc. Finally, there is a section here called the portals, which has access to websites with huge databases that can be linked into GeoMapsApps. This works better, of course, for places like Canada, US, places where we have a lot of data available, but you always check to see if in the area that you're working, you can have access to more of this data. So this is basically the base map, the geology, and how you can create different databases that you can use in your own exploration of your data. Now in this second part, I will let one of the developers of GeoMapApps to explain some of the incredible things that you can do with GeoMap.
Welcome to this short video in which we'll go over what's new in GeoMapApps for version 3.6.6. We'll look at the functions listed here and show the updates and enhancements that are being made in this release. So first up is the Digitizing Tool. So here, Welcome to this short video in which we'll go over what's new in GeoMapApps for version 3.6.6. We'll look at the functions listed here and show the updates and enhancements that are being made in this release. So first up is the Digitizing Tool. So here, I activated the Digitizer by clicking the XYZ button in the toolbar, and that loaded the grid that underlies the global multi-resolution topographic synthesis that forms the base map for GeoMapApps. So let's move this window out of the way and start digitizing. So the big upgrade for this release has been that we made the digitizer much simpler, more intuitive, and we can edit the points in real time. So let's say we want to finish digitizing, we can just double click, and let's say we made a mistake with this point. We can either drag it to a new location on the map, like so, or we could change the latitude or longitude value in the table below just by clicking on one of these and say making it minus 21 degrees instead, and that moved the point down to there. We can also rearrange the values by dragging the rows around in the table, so let's move this row up to there, and like so. Okay. We can also append to an existing segment, so if we want to add a couple of extra digitized points to the end of this profile, we click Add Segment, and there we go. Okay, and any of those edits can be made whether we're looking at the interpolated points or the profile. So if we drag a point around, you see the profile and all the values changing in real time. And then we also added a Save button that allows the table or the profile to be saved. So that's a very brief overview on the updates that were made to the Digitizer. Let's now look at Save Sessions. So we're going to close this. So here's an example we'll use to cover the updates we've made to the save session function. In this case, we've got quite a lot going on in this GeoMapApps session. We have a few grids loaded and some tabular data. There's a grid of shear wave velocity that has one color palette, the Jet 2 invert palette. On top of that, we have the depth to the top of the subducting slab, and that grid has been made semi-transparent and has been colored with a black-white palette. We've also added contours to it. Then we've put the state boundaries on as an overlay. There's Washington, Oregon, and Idaho state there with the boundaries. And on top of everything, this tabular data set represents some geochemical data that's been colored on aluminium oxide and scaled on magnesia. So the new version of GeoMapApp will allow this example to be saved just like it is, and that allows it to be shared with collaborators or with students if you teach. So to save the session, we go to File, Save Session, into the Session Manager, Save Current Session, and we'll save that. And that will save a little file that's just shown here. And I'm going to get rid of this GeoMapApp and start another one. And we'll show how to import that. So here's the new window, and we'll import that session that we just saved. There it is. And we see lots of things happening, lots of data sets are being loaded. And you can see here it's loading the tabular data slowly. Okay, so we click that. And there we go. So we imported that save session file, and all of the layers with all the transparency, the coloring, the shading, the contouring has all been reproduced exactly as we saved it. Remember that a save session will work on built-in datasets, but we don't currently allow imported datasets to be stored in a session file. So that's the update to the save session. Next, we'll very briefly explain the upgrade that was made that allows a wider range of grids to be added to GeoMapApp. Here we have a couple of different grids that were produced using the GMT software, and one is in the older style CF NetCDF format, which stores the Z values as floats, and the other grid stores them as double precision in the newer ND format. In the new version of GeoMapApp, the newer version of the grid, the double precision version, can now be imported. So both floats and double precision grids can be imported into GeoMapApp now. So let's close this window and look at the next upgrade. And that is the upgrade that was made to how GeoMapApp handles web feature services and web mapping services. Here's a web page that offers a WMS, a web mapping service that we can test. So in this case it's the Washington State geological data from the USGS. And we see, if we look down near the bottom, that the web mapping service URL has the HTTPS format. That's the newer style, and GeoMapApp can now handle those. So let's copy that into the mouse, copy link, and in GeoMapApp we go into File, Import from WMS, and we pop the URL in there, hit connect, and GeoMapApp is reaching out to the USGS WMS server. There we go. It connected and it found these layers, and let's load the Washington State lithology. And it's loading, here we go, and in a second, there we go, there we see the lithological map has come up, like that. So now GeoMapApp can handle HTTP and HTTPS calls to web feature services and web mapping services. Next, we'll very briefly explain the update made to handling tabular data. Here we have some geochemical data for the East African Rift area, and the update refers to the color, scale, or graphing functions. In previous versions of GeoMapApp, if you clicked on one of these, all of the column headers that's in the table below would be listed in the menu, but now when you click on a menu, only the valid columns which have valid numerical values will be listed. So if we wanted to color, say, on the alumina value, we do it like that. The last update relates to the profiling tool, which we'll show here. So in this case, we have a couple of grids, magnetic anomalies at the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. We have a background grid, and on top of that we have a higher resolution grid from a Langseth survey. And if we look carefully, we can see that there are some holes in the higher resolution ship-based grid. If we want to draw a profile, that we'll do by activating the profile tool and drawing through these holes. The upgrade that's been made to this version of GeoMapApp is that now the pen is lifted in the profile window whenever there's a data gap. Notice also we have this stack of vertical grids, and this was an update that we made allowing multiple grids to be profiled at once in the previous version of GeoMapApp. So that concludes this short video on the updates that we've made for version 3.6.6, and as before, if you have any questions or comments, please send email to info@geomapapp.org. Thank you.
I think these videos are brilliant, and I'm sure you will like them too. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to click the notification bell.